today Professor T.N. Guru Rao from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. So Professor Guru Rao did his bachelor's and master's from Bangalore University. He did his PhD from Indian Institute of Science and spent some time doing his postdoc at Sunny Buffalo and Roosevelt Park Memorial Institute in Buffalo. And among the awards he's won, a few of them are the IISc Alumni Award for Excellence in Science 2009, and presently he's having the JC Bose Fellowship. So since the year of 2014 is being celebrated as the International Year of Crystallography, he'll be talking to us today about the developments which have been done in this important field. So his the title for today's talk is X-ray Crystallography, Past, Present and Future. So let's please welcome him.
Okay, good evening. I'm very happy to be here. This is the second year in succession, and I'm talking at this 9 o'clock Curie Club. It's quite interesting that it is called Curie Club because quite a considerable amount of what I'm going to talk about was in fact initiated by Madame Curie. Because she's the one who carried radium in her hand without knowing that radium can cause radiation damage. And in fact, it is the radiation about which we will be talking about in the next 45 minutes or so. What I wanted to do here was to concentrate on past, present and future in crystallography. Because whenever somebody reaches 100 years, among human beings, very rarely of course, we celebrate a centenary. And whenever a centenary is celebrated, we worry only about what all he has achieved because we pretty well know that he is not going to last very long. And it is probably the same is true with all branches of science as well, because it may so happen that many branches in science, when they reach 100 years, they've already reached the limit. But here is an area which seems to be just a novelty. And by the time I finish my talk, you will realize that there is plenty of future for this area. And that is quite exciting because this is in this context that, as Shweta mentioned, that we have the 2014 declared by the UN as the International Year of Crystallography. This talk also I prepared as a sort of a precursor to what will go on in 2014 in India. I will just tell you something about what will also go on in India in 2014 as a part of the celebrations. One of the major things will be that there will be some workshops. And these workshops are being planned in such a way that we don't go to IISERs, IISc and universities and so on. We go to smaller colleges, particularly in rural areas, and try to tell them what is X-ray diffraction. It's something which initially we don't feel very comfortable because what is the point in telling what is X-ray diffraction if they cannot do X-ray diffraction over the years? So one of the ideas which was been mooted by the current thinking is that we will also take it with us the company, Bruker, Rigaku and Panarical. They will bring their machines around. And most of them have these tabletop machines which will work on normal power. Assuming that there is power in our villages once in a while. We will next year try to demonstrate to them how X-ray diffraction works. I think this is a motivation which will probably push rural areas to think about science. It's not just crystallography, but in general, the orientation of people in rural areas towards science. This is one of the aspects. The other one is, of course, to have some celebrities come around and give talks. And I can announce that Philip Coppens has agreed to come, and he's going to be an IISER professor for 3 weeks. And have already impressed upon him that he has to visit IISER here. He's going to visit IISER Bhopal, he will come to IISER Chandigarh, that is Mohali. And so you will have somebody who is almost reaching 100 years, who has worked with Coulson in the early days, who has formulated the concept of chemical bonding in terms of charge densities. So these are the targets which we will probably try to reach in the year 2014. Apart from that, of course, 2014 will also have several workshops where student participation, we leave it to the students what they want to do. Students in crystallography, they can come forward and whatever money is required, we told that IISER will give them support to a tune of some 30,000 to 50,000 rupees. So the students can go around and then conduct their workshops around the entire country. The whole idea is to spread the nature and features associated with this particular region. But that is not the future I am going to talk about. That seems to be a future for crystallography in India. We are trying to rekindle crystallography in India, as a matter of fact, because one of the things which always happens in crystallography is, and also I have always been telling this, that crystallographers are their own enemies. Because this is an area which has developed as a perfect science. And people have taken this area to such levels that you have to just press a few enter buttons on your computer when you want to get a structure. The moment you have a crystal available to you of any given compound, you have to just press the enter button. How many times? 7 times. Nowadays it is even less. Okay, the number of times you have to press the enter button is also becoming lesser and lesser. And it is also that it is not necessary that you should have a small molecule problems. You can also do the same pressing of the enter button for macromolecular structures as well. It's become such a routine thing that there are people who say, oh, what is there in crystal? You just put a crystal, you get a structure. But the impact of crystallography over the years has been such that it has always been playing, let's say, something like Dravid when Sachin Tendulkar was hitting centuries all around. But eventually you see that the two fellows have achieved about the same thing. So crystallography reminds me of Rahul Dravid as a science. It has always been a science which sort of shadowed some other aspects. You will see by the end of the talk why I say this. Because you see the number of Nobel Prizes which have been won by crystallographers. It has beaten all the prize. In fact, crystallography is the Sachin Tendulkar of science as far as Nobel Prize is concerned. And that is very interesting. So we will start and make a beginning of, from where to begin. This is something which I was thinking about. And then it occurred to me that I should begin at the very beginning. And the very beginning is that matter is made up of three forms, gases, liquids, and solids. And we would like to study solids because solids have order. We also live in a three-dimensional world where there are lots of solid objects which surround us. And we therefore want to like symmetry. Mankind loves symmetry. We love symmetry so much that even though there is no symmetry in any one of them, which we actually see around in nature, we would like to create symmetry which will mix with nature. So for example, this hall where we have arranged all the chairs is highly symmetrical, but none of the occupants of each chair is symmetrical to the other. So the asymmetry associated with symmetry becomes an interesting aspect to study. And crystallography helps you to do that. Anyway, one of the things which we always have, in fact today afternoon in the class I was mentioning to some of you who were there, that we have to start, we cannot think in three dimensions. In fact, you see here in this slide, even gods cannot think in three dimensions. Forget about us. Gods also have forgotten thinking in three dimensions, probably because they also went to school. And the reason is that you see here, this is Apollo who is carrying the earth on his shoulder. And you see that this angel is shining light. They are trying to find the distance between, let's say, Bombay and Bangalore or something, or Chandigarh and Bangalore. And so these two fellows are using a pair of dividers to measure the distance on the projection. And this is how the three-dimensional world is looked at in the form of projections. In fact, early crystallography developed not by looking at two-dimensional projections, but actually looking at three-dimensional solids. If you look at this history with which crystallography developed, people in Russia, I don't know, maybe you should be in Siberia. It's not a, India is not a place where we can probably see minus 37 all through the year. But Siberia, people in Siberia used to sit there and look at crystals. And in fact, Fedorov in 1790 discovered all the 230 space groups. And there is no variation of those space groups even to this day. And there was no crystallography, no X-ray diffraction, nothing available to him except crystals, which were available because he was sitting at the window with crystals of ice used to form. By looking at those, he derived all the 230 space groups. And that's more or less the beginning of crystallography, in my opinion. Apart from that, there are situations where we also see patterns in symmetry. One of the requirements of a solid is to have periodicity, as we all know. And here is an example of a two-dimensional period object. This is drawn by an abstract painter by name Escher. It has nothing to do with crystallography. But all crystallographic knowledge which you would like to have is available in these slides. Here you see that there are two kinds of horses which are shown here, the red horse and the white horse. And one of the major issues which you see here is that absolutely no space is left blank. It's completely close-packed. It's a two-dimensional close-packed motif. And the other issue which you will come across in a minute is that there is a repeat unit associated with it. So you don't have to have, you can generate the entire motif if you take one of these blue squares, or blue blocks which we have drawn here. The positioning of the blue block need not be as I have shown. It can be anywhere in this mural. So in other words, if I take this as the origin, that could be the origin of this block, and then we can generate the entire two-dimensional mural here. Otherwise, I can move it to any other place. I can move it to this center, that center, the tail, the nose, wherever you would like. And the same, that could be the origin, and we can describe the same size box, which will now define the entire mural. And such a definition gives us the definition of the unit cell. So this is the unit cell, which in fact we can see is going to generate the entire mural. And it is not necessary that the mural has to be very similar to what you saw before. It could be a different kind of a mural. In this particular case, you have a two-fold symmetry that has rotated instead of the horses we have the flying cats. But the same obvious reasoning can be given for identifying the unit cell in this two-dimensional mural. You can also have different kinds of objects in this mural. So it is not necessary that we should have only a flying horse or a flying cat. We can have different kinds of objects, but they can also form a closed pack. There is absolutely no space anywhere left in this particular mural, and you can define a unit cell associated with this. And this unit cell now will generate a two-dimensional motif. It can be extended to three dimensions as well. There is absolutely no problem or no thinking necessary to extend it to three dimensions. So this is what happens when we define three-dimensional lattices, and you have 7 types of lattices which you read in all your textbooks. So we have 7 kinds of lattices, and all these can be generated, and their definitions are given here. It is not the idea of giving you the definitions of the crystal lattice and so on, but it is the beginning of this crystallographic science, which is the modern day X-ray crystallography. Very interestingly, science sort of started on a rapid pace in the beginning of 19th century. Lots and lots of discoveries were made. In fact, Curie, Madame Curie belonged to this era, towards the last part of the 19th century and early part of the 20th century. Röntgen discovered X-rays in this period. The wave-particle duality was identified and explained. There were lots of discussions, lots of fantastic discoveries came by in the beginning of this early 20th century. The whole idea was that it introduced a lot of competition among a handful of scientists who were all the time thinking about discovering new things. Unfortunately, that trend has not remained over the years. When we were thinking that when we come to the 21st century, there will be again a spurt, but it doesn't seem to be happening. The biggest achievements of science came towards the end of 19th century and early 20th century. And after that, I don't think we have advanced any further. We have advanced further in one area, which I'm going to talk about, enormously. And that, in fact, has to be used in the future in order to make discoveries of the type which were made during the end of 19th century and 20th century. X-rays were used to probe matter and to establish the structure. That's something which was happening in the beginning of the 20th century. And these people, von Laue in 1912 and 1913, Bragg and Bragg, the father and son combination, you all know both of them got Nobel Prizes. So both people were awarded. The people here, as well as the person there, were awarded the Nobel Prize, one after the other, in succession, 1912 and 1930. What is it that really attracts our attention? Here is a quiz for you. I think since it is 9 o'clock in the night, quiz is a good order. I think Ishka was the quiz, so I don't want her to answer, but others can probably look at it. You have, this is a picture which I took from a hotel window in China. I think I told this story last year. Whoever is in the last year lecture, you please hold on, don't answer immediately. The younger fellows, I think Arun and Sneesh should be able to answer. Okay. Okay, then I think I'm not making a quiz. I'll just explain the phenomenon. But then I'll ask you still, whether you remember what you were told last year. Let's see how many of you were awake last year's lecture. That is also interesting. So let it be a question rather than a quiz. This is a picture which I took when I went to China, in one of the conferences, and there was nothing much to do because all my colleagues drink a lot. And I'm the only fellow who doesn't drink, so I stayed in my room. All these fellows were going downstairs and enjoying life. I don't know what they mean by enjoying, but they were all drinking.